the National Parents Union 100th Facebook Live episode. Can you believe that we have, through all of our programming, provided 100 episodes of content for our parents and families? This is an amazing, beautiful feat that we have accomplished together. So, and we've also added new programming. So we have Tim and Carrie in the morning, every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time, which is 6 a.m. here, so I don't get to catch it very often. And then we have the Checking In show with Christina Lassiter, which is, I believe, oh, I'm sorry, before that we have our Spanish show, which is at noon Eastern time, and Judith Yanes, Rodolfo Aguilar, and I host those. We take turns during the week. And then we have our Making It Through the Day with Christina Lassiter, and we also just added a show with Bernita Bradley, and then we have this show. So I have a lot of, I just heard right before we went on that this is our 100th episode. So it just feels really beautiful to be a part of all of this movement and providing content and support for our families during this time. I am Marisol Quevedo Rerucho. I am the proud granddaughter of Mexican immigrants. I'm the daughter of Irma Navran. I'm the niece of Yolanda Alicia Castro. Hi, Mayoli. I love you. I know you're watching. She is NPU's biggest fan. I'm sure she's seen most of those 100 episodes. I am also the very proud mother of Camerina, Emilia, and Sofia. And I have the honor of being the grandmother of Isabela Luna and Cynthia Eliana. So during our show, we always do our breathing exercise. So we do what's called 4-7-8. So we're going to continue doing it because it's working. So we're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. Sorry, we're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. We're going to hold for 7 and then release for 8. Let me get my timer ready. Are you ready? Okay. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So today I practiced this technique and it really, really helped me. I really struggled this weekend for a couple of reasons. So I haven't been feeling balanced. And I realized that when I got really angry at all of the people who were protesting, protesting at their states, their governors, and protesting here in San Diego against the restrictions that are in place to keep everybody safe. And these people, in Michigan, there's a picture of them showing up with really scary looking guns. And they're standing at the steps of their state house. And then here in San Diego, it looked like over 200 people gathered downtown. And they're putting themselves at risk. They're putting others at risk. I got really upset. And I also got upset because the reality is that had they been Black and brown, the police response would have been much different. So I was harboring, so I just was very emotional about all of it. And I was really angry. And I found myself saying, like, you know what, I hope they get sick. like if anybody dies, and they, God, this is so horrible to even say, but these are the thoughts that were going through my mind. And this is not who I am. This is not who I strive to be. And so I was really struggling with this. And I was just feeling, like I said, out of balance. And I try to read things that will help me be more compassionate. I try to read and surround myself with people that are loving, that have that intent of growth and goodness. So this morning, very fortunately, really early, I had an appointment with my therapist, and I talked about it with her. And there were a couple of things that she reminded me of. And one of those things that she reminded me of is that negative energy that the protesters are emanating and like are throwing out, that negative energy wants me to react and respond in a negative way. And I know that. I feel like that's something that I know and I accept. Like negative energy, it seeks to control and to get reactions. And so I'm usually aware of that. So that was a phenomenal reminder for me that I don't have to, like, that's something that can help me stop with those negative thoughts and getting into that space. The other thing that she reminded me of is that we don't know what goes on in people's homes. And my feeling with people that carry around a lot of anger is that they're in pain. And when people are in pain, they're not generally happy. And who knows what people's homes are like, and being caught up in home, people not working, maybe not being able to provide for their family. I don't know their circumstances. And so it just was a good reminder to come back to compassion. And the other thing that I did is I got back to my daily routine. So I started this when I left my career as an educator, 22 years, to start consulting. That was last summer. So I started this book, This Morning Ritual, and it's a daily checklist. And so every morning and I stopped doing this, but I started again today. So I write down like 5 things that I'm grateful for in the morning, and then projecting what are the greatest achievements of my life, and then goals, and then there's this morning checklist and me visualizing. So I started that again today. And then I also took time to meditate, as I pray throughout the day, but I took time to meditate. The other thing my therapist helped me with, because in the morning when I wake up, first thing I do is my prayers of gratitude for the fact that I woke up. I thank God for my family. Like I have this kind of routine that I go through. But the other thing that my therapist reminded me of is that our community is coming together in such a beautiful way. And so like when I'm having those feelings about what other people are doing and what I see as them harming potentially themselves and others, like thinking about and shifting that gratitude for community. So that was really big, like taking it outside of what I normally do. And then I also wanted to read to you from this article that His Holiness the Dalai Lama wrote. And the title is Prayer is Not Enough, the Dalai Lama on Why We Need to Fight Coronavirus with Compassion. So I'm just going to read part of it. We Buddhists believe that the entire world is interdependent. That is why I often speak about universal responsibility. The outbreak of this terrible coronavirus has shown that what happens to one person can soon affect every other being. But it also reminds us that a compassionate or constructive act, whether working in hospitals or just observing social distancing, has the potential to help many. The crisis shows that we must all take responsibility where we can. We must combine the courage doctors and nurses are showing with empirical science to begin to turn the situation around and to protect our future from more such threats. In this time of great fear, it is important that we think of the long-term challenges and possibilities of the entire globe. Photographs of our world from space clearly show that there are no real boundaries on our blue planet. Therefore, all of us must take care of it and work to prevent climate change and other destructive forces. This pandemic serves as a warning that only by coming together with a coordinated global response will we meet the unprecedented magnitude of the challenges we face. We must also remember that nobody is free of suffering and extend our hands to others who lack homes, resources, or family to protect them. This crisis shows us that we are not separate from one another, even when we are living apart. Therefore, we all have a responsibility to exercise compassion and help. As a Buddhist, I believe in the principle of impermanence. Eventually, this virus will pass, as I have seen wars and other terrible threats pass in my lifetime, and we will have the opportunity to rebuild our global community as we have done many times before. I sincerely hope that everyone can stay safe and stay calm at this time of uncertainty. It is important that we do not lose hope and confidence in the constructive efforts so many are making. So I take from that and I come back to the struggle that I was having, the struggle for compassion, the struggle, even with like it turned into really negative self-talk in my head. And the reminder that I cannot let go of my routine and those things that fill my cup. I have to take time in the morning to do my morning ritual, to pray, to meditate, to do those things that help set me up so that I can feel centered and grounded when things are coming at me. And that also will allow me to continue to support others on this journey that we share together. So with that, on our 100th episode, I would like to introduce you to our 100th episode guest, Selina Calvo. Selina is a, here she comes. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Okay, so before I start talking about you, because I was going to start talking about you, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? So tell us about yourself, what you do, who you are, your family, whatever it is that you would like to share.
Okay. I'm Selina Calvo, also Selina Lugo. I go by two names. Selina Calvo is my artist name. And then obviously my married name, Selina Lugo. I am an artist, an activist. I am a owner of two businesses that are being affected right now with all of this going on. But we're getting through it. I am co-owner of Project Rio Collective in Paradise Hills coffee shop, and then I am also co-owner of Golondrina, an artist space where we sell our work. And there's 6 of us that are owners of that space.
So I'm just going to interrupt you super quick. So Selina is in Paradise Hills, so she's in San Diego with me. So this is the National Parenting, so we have people from all over. So she is here in beautiful San Diego, California. And then I just wanted to make sure that we shared that. So you are co-owner of Project Rio Collective. If people want to find out more information, there's a website, correct?
Yeah, you can go to Project Rio Collective. You can Google the name and it will pop up. And then and you can find us on Instagram and Facebook. So yeah. And then Golondrina as well. We don't have a website for Golondrina, but you can find us on Instagram or Facebook. And that's in Logan. So, but yeah, so I'm a mother of 2, Damian and Isel Lugo, and a wife. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Well, and aside from all of that, you're also an essential worker. So you work in.
I work at Costco. I'm a stalker in the morning, morning merchandising. So I'm fortunate enough to not have to interact with the public too much. But I'm going in there in the morning, touching all the stuff that everybody's been touching. So that's another level of stress, But Costco's been amazing. I'm really fortunate to be working for them. They've been super supportive of families and workers. I actually ended up having to go out right when everything was happening because I got sick. Actually, I got pretty sick where it was basically all the symptoms. Because I didn't get to the point where I had a hard time breathing. The hospitals were like, stay home, treat yourself at home. We don't, we can't risk any of that. So, my work let me have a whole month off to recoup and also monitor my family. So yeah, they've actually been pretty awesome about all of it.
So how are you doing with everything that's been going on? And there's so much, I think, just holistically, like you talked about, you're a mom, you're a wife, you own two businesses, you work, you're an artist, you're an activist. How are you doing holistically at this time?
Every day is different, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
okay with that, right? I've had days where I'm absolutely, exhausted and I don't want to do anything. And I think coming from being super active on a day to day of running around, making sure businesses are good and making sure, family's good. And, and then on top of that, when they were in sports, to go from that to like, you're stuck at home and you have to make sense of all of this. Right. So, today's a good day. Today's my birthday, actually, which is awesome. So that's another thing to add to the excitement.
Happy birthday to ya. Happy birthday to ya. I'll sing las mañanitas too if you would like.
Sounds good.
I got you. Thank you for spending your birthday with us.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've come to accept that it's okay to not be busy and to really enjoy just being with family, like finding joy in that, right? I think that's been kind of the blessing of it, is reconnecting with our kids and having these moments with them. They're 9 and 11, so they're at an interesting age. They're not babies, but they're also, they're like preteen. Mm-hmm. And just trying to stay positive for them. And then some days, we get up and we're super motivated. Let's go do the yard and let's go do, gardening and, let's be productive. And so I've accepted being home and being and creating a world for us that we can be happy in, and try to make sense of it all. So I'm staying away from watching too much news, to be honest. I mean, I started finding myself, it's like you watch, depending on what's on the news, of being, I completely, like when you were talking about being angry, people protesting, like I felt so frustrated, because when you have family members and, friends, good friends that are within the medical field that see everything that's happening, and to see all their hard work to kind of be wasted away because you have people being, I think, selfish, but at the end of the day, keeping in mind, like, what are they going through, and, what's going on in their lives? Like, I get it too, but I think, how do you use those frustrations and make it positive, so we can all get through this together? Because I think at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Like, how do we get through this together? Not how do I get through it? Like, how can we support each other, right? So I mean, that's one thing too I've been very mindful of is, if for instance, it's funny, I actually did I was kind of curious how the whole Instacart works. I don't know if you've ever tried it, where you have like somebody go shopping for you at a store or whatever. So I did it one day and I was like, okay, that's cool. And the guy who got my stuff, I gave him a fat tip, because I'm like, you're doing this for me, and I want to help you for doing this for me. And that's, it's nothing big, but that's my way I can help him, somebody else who's trying to find work and get through all of this too, and so I think that's what we need to start thinking of, like, how can we help each other and support each other?
There's this, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a group that's going up to, I believe, to Carlsbad, which is an area where we have farm workers. Mm-hmm. And they're collecting donations right now to give gift cards for food and needed items. So they're working with the people who work with the farm workers to get like a list of items. Mm-hmm. But for me, it was such a beautiful, and also my cousin put together a GoFundMe account for bandanas for farm workers. Mm-hmm. And I think like this way of really being able to take care of each other without leaving your house, right? Yeah. But just being able to take care of people that are providing so much for us. Mm-hmm. In our community. So can you talk a little bit more about I don't think the right word is involvement, but your commitment to community. So it's no like you mentioning like how do we get through this together? How do we build this? It is no surprise to me that that's where you go,
Mhm.
because of your commitment to our community. So can you talk about that and like when did that start?
I really became active in activism and organizing when I moved here from Sacramento. So I was born and raised in Sacramento. And so when I moved here in 2004, I went to City Community College where I was open to up to this whole world of organizing through the Chicano Studies department, you know? And it really changed the way I saw, how to, like that concept of like, how do we take care of each other? How do we support those who are dealing with struggles? And in particularly at that time, I was organizing with a lot of like immigration issues and undocumented people who were undocumented in our country, right? So that's kind of where I started my work. Doing a lot of like protests and organizing and fundraisers and stuff like that. And then when we got to Paradise Hills, when my husband and I and the kids, we moved to Paradise Hills, we started really looking at our community and seeing how there was a lot of, we have a little strip called Rio Drive, and we have our little shopping area. There's a little marketplace, Lapa Lapa, and we have the little taco shop, Los Tapatíos, and stuff like that. But for the most part, a lot of the buildings were vacant for a really long time.
So this area, so I'm in Paradise Hills. We moved here in 2002. We bought our house.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I grew up in San Diego. I grew up in Shelltown. My comadre grew up in Southeast, but we didn't really know this area. And I took her like to the post office, and she was like, when you're in a different hood that's not your hood. I remember she like locked the doors, like, where did you bring me? Like,
Yeah.
because it was a little bit different then, but definitely, like a lower income neighborhood. And just like you're saying, kind of deserted, and the strip that looked like it could have been, like had potential for like some community stuff, because it's like a little strip that could be like a little mini downtown area.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and so that was the thing is like, we would come, we would be within the neighborhood, and it was just like, God, like just to see it being neglected.
Yeah.
And so what ended up happening was my husband, so he was a teacher at the time. He created a project for his students to do a mural within the community, right? So he had seen like the side of Lapa Lapa that would always get tagged up. It's this huge wall, like right when you're entering into that strip, it's like the perfect wall for tagging, pretty much, And so we'd always talk, and he'd say like, man, I just want to put a mural on there, like just something to change it, So being a teacher, and being very creative in that sense of like, okay, what can I do to make a project that would be meaningful,
Was this at High Tech High, which is a project-based learning school? Yeah. And he also is an artist. So both you and your husband are artists. So he was teaching art at High Tech High.
Yeah.
And is really world renowned for their project-based learning.
Yeah.
And he turned that into coming to the community and having the project. So I call that problem-based learning, but like coming to the community to do the project.
Yeah. And it was really cool. So the students went out into the community and started talking to, people in and around the neighborhood, and just kind of getting feedback of, if we were to have a mural, what do you want to see, or what do you want it to represent? And so then, they came up with a final mural, and one weekend they went out there, and all the students were out there, and they started painting the mural, and they invited people in the community to come and join. And it was really beautiful, and it completely changed like the feeling of going into the neighborhood, and you see this beautiful, vibrant mural that was done by people of the community and students. And so that was kind of the catalyst to a lot of the movement that we've been doing in Paradise Hills. After that, we've done a total, including that mural, there's a total of 3 big murals that we've created in the neighborhood on the strip. And they're all, I designed the 2 other murals. But when we actually made the murals, we invited the community to come out and paint them. So all I ended up doing was painting the outlines of the images. And then we would have people from the community, whoever wanted to participate, to come and pretty much kind of like that paint by numbers, paint this green or paint this red. And then afterwards, I would bring in other artists to come in and do all the details. So, yeah. And so that was kind of the start. But we were doing movie nights for the community. We were doing community cleanups, and just really, really working on revitalizing the neighborhood.
What year did this start?
In 2016. So that was the creation of Project Rio. So we created a community group called Project Rio. We're not a nonprofit or anything like that. We were just neighbors, people in the neighborhood who wanted to revitalize our neighborhood. And so through all those other events, one of the other things we would talk about, right? So we had all these vacant businesses, and we were like, man, like it would be nice to just have like a coffee shop or other, places we can go to and hang out with our family and our friends. So 5 of our families got together and we invested in a coffee shop, and we did it from the ground up, literally like build, like, we got into one of the businesses and we recreated the whole space. None of us had any coffee experience. We just kind of were like, we're just going to do it. We're not going to wait for somebody to come in and do it, like, because nobody is. So let us create it. And so that's how we ended up with the coffee shop.
So the coffee shop now, it used to be like this little, and so when did the coffee shop open?
That opened up in 2017.
So it was one little storefront. Mm-hmm. And now you have a bigger storefront.
Yeah. We took over the space next to us too. So now we're double the size.
So please talk about the events that you were offering the community before COVID hit us and closed us down.
Yeah. So, the coffee shop's been amazing. We were able, we have monthly art shows. So, and really pushing for local artists to be part of them, and giving people all the opportunity to show their work, especially people in the neighborhood, like getting that sense of pride with that. Mm-hmm. We were having music events. Carlos Baez from B-Side Players would come out and perform. And then we also, we'd have a jazz night and a reggae night. So a little bit of everything for everybody, And then we started the Community Wellness Series, which a few of us organizers within the community got together and we created the series to bring different kinds of events that emphasized on mental health and self-care. So we did an event where it was kids yoga. We did a parent journaling class. We did a men's circle, which was really amazing. I mean, the turnout was, I think we had over 20 something participants.
Wow.
And it was beautiful too, because to see men step up and make themselves vulnerable like that, and it was really cool to see that. And then
right? It's people from all over San Diego.
For the wellness series? Well, so we tried to emphasize for Paradise Hills. But if anybody wanted to come in, we wouldn't say no, we definitely, but with the idea of giving these resources to our community, because prior to that, when was it? Was it November when there was the killing of the family? There was, like a domestic violence situation where the husband came in and he killed his wife and his 4 boys and then himself. And it was traumatizing, right? It was traumatic. And
some of the little boys went to school they were in elementary school, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're like baseball teams. Yeah.
Yeah. And so with that, when that happened, as a community, you're kind of like, why didn't we see the signs or, I know for myself, it really affected me because I had a friend that died that way too, where her husband killed her aunt, and then killed himself. So like, to me, it took me way back to when that happened. And it brought up a lot of raw feelings that even then I didn't know how to process that. And so, I buried a lot of those feelings. And so to have this experience happen within the community was just like feeling that sense of anxiety and sadness. So that was the whole creation of the community wellness series. Was a lot of us organizers within the community were like, all right, like what can we do, to help us heal from this, but also give resources of like, listen, you may not have any idea what art therapy is. Try it out. Here's an opportunity to try out, meet somebody who they do this as a profession. This might be something you might need right now, or like the kids yoga, like other ways we can look at self-care, for our families and for ourselves. So that was the main purpose of that was bringing these resources to our community so that people have access to it and possibly to pursue it more outside, right? And look into it, because I think that's part of it, is that there's a lot of stigma of self-care and mental health, and you're having these feelings and thoughts, and what do we do a lot of times is you push it away, and there's that's something's wrong with me, but I don't want to deal with it, so we really just wanted to break that and give people opportunities to really explore it for themselves. So, and then everything hit, and it was like, so it's been interesting, and we really want to go back to bringing these services back. But, again, everything's, until we get a little bit more clearance on stuff. So
I've seen a lot of organizations that were doing similar work in other areas, in other parts of the United States, that are offering things online. So offering services. And that's actually also part of what this show is about, like it's called like our restorative check-in. Like, this is our time to do some processing, to do some work with people, and just to, give people voice. And I think those have been helpful. Just the opportunity. I know one of our members, Judith, had asked me if I knew of any groups that were doing like spiritual work, especially like ceremonial.
Yeah.
And just because who knows when this is going to end, right? Yeah. So you talked about your art therapy. So can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Yeah, so I brought in a really good friend of mine. I've known her forever. I'm sure you probably know her too, Dr. Berenice Cebedillo. She's amazing. She's an PhD art therapist, and she was, she's done amazing work, and I've known her for a really long time. So when we were thinking about the first event to have with the community wellness, like, she right off the bat was like, we need to bring her in. And when she came in, it was interesting because we had pre-sign-ups, you have to sign up to participate, and we were going to have it in the space, and it was, it wasn't open to the public, so that it was a little bit more, personal and with no interruptions and stuff like that. And so everybody who signed up were women. None of the men, no men signed up for it. So that was one indicator of like, that's interesting, right? And it was interesting because we came in and, we had, she's amazing with her work of how she guides the whole session. And before you knew it, we're telling these stories of our work, we did we did collages. So, we had to create, we had a piece of paper, and, we had all these clippings of images and stuff like that. And the process was, just pick out whatever, that speaks to you, and don't have any expectations with it. If you like that picture, pick it, whatever. And then at the end, once we put our collages together, we took turns of talking about our collage, but in a story. And it was like, so tell your story, what's the story of what you created? And it's interesting, right? Like, there was no other explanation, nothing that you had to talk about in particular. And some of us went deep, it was like, we were coming out crying, because it was just like, oh my God, like, I wasn't thinking about going there, but once I started talking about my story within what I created, it took me there, it was really beautiful. I mean, just to hear the stories that everybody brought up, but also in realizing that with everybody who came to this event, you know, we had 3 generations there. You know, we had young women that were in community college that, you know, they're like 20, 21 years old. And then there was a lot of us who were like, you know, we're in our 30s and 40s. And then we had our elders, you know, we had a couple of ladies there that are, you know, they're in their 70s, you know, late 70s. And so to like have these conversations together of whatever we were, you know, whatever we're experiencing and whatever these images brought to us. And also being able to comfort each other, being like, I understand, like I went through that when I was your age, or you know what, like I'm thinking about that right now of when I get to that age. And it was just such a beautiful experience. It was really beautiful, and to be able to create relationships out of that too, right? Because I think a lot of people connected and even now, you know, still connect because they, you know, it's like, wow, like the opportunity to meet each other and really see each other's stories and being inspired of like feeling like, let me know if you need anything, you know, call me up, you know, whatever, like I'm here for you, you know, because we shared this special moment with each other. So yeah.
It's very sacred work that's done.
Yeah.
You know, that those opportunities there, it's really beautiful. Are you continuing with art therapy on your own?
You know, when we started, you know, having to stay home, I remember one day, you know, we were all moping around the house because we didn't know what was going on, and you know, so it was one of those days, you know, of like I don't have any motivation for anything, and I still had a whole bunch of magazines from that event, so I was like, you know what, like let's sit and cut, you know, and let's see what we create, and so yeah, you know, like that was, you know, I try to keep that on the side to explore for myself and my family. And I mean, that's the thing about art, you know, it's so therapeutic in a way of like losing yourself doing something. And I think that's what I've been doing since all this quarantine, is knowing that when I have those days that I'm not at my best or feel the best, I make it a point to make time to create. So I mainly focus on painting. That's my love is watercolor and acrylics, working with watercolor and acrylics. And so, you know, I've created a lot of pieces, and it's funny because I had been so active in everything else, I kind of stopped working on personal work for myself. And so now I have all this time in the world. So I've been making it a point to paint more. And so it's been nice to be in those moments of like, whatever I'm creating, being completely involved with it and going through my thoughts while I paint, and just kind of, you know, talking to myself and really getting into like, why do I feel like this today? Or, you know, like I need to be motivated in this way. And so I think a lot of the paintings I've done recently have been, they're a little bit of reflections of what I was thinking at that time, or what I was feeling at that time. What was I connecting at that time? So, and you actually got one of the paintings, because
I did. I have it back. I think I have it. So, I have it right here. Hold on. Let me get it, because this is a very different style than what you normally do. And I have the reason why it spoke to me, and I think I told you, is because I just feel this connection with the phoenix. Which is, you know, the mythical bird. I know you know the mythical bird that rises from the ashes. But I feel like, and I think the reason why so many people can feel connected to the phoenix is because it's really through like the burning down, through our pain, through almost our destruction and not being destroyed, that we're reborn.
Yeah.
And that we come out more beautiful. Like we come out from the flames of our pain. And of course, you know, the school of life.
Yeah.
The journey that's ours. So this really spoke to me. But your pieces, they're usually more like, you do beautiful flowers, and like your colors they're very vibrant. This one is very different.
Yeah.
Than what usually. And you did a piece that was that was I don't know if it was like titled The Ancestors, but there was an ancestral connection.
Yeah, so I did a piece. So my on my dad's side, his parents are from Michoacan. And I've never been there. It's funny, this year would have been the year I was planning on going to my family's, that where they come, my father's family, where they came from. But again, with everything going on, it's like, well, that's not going to happen anytime soon. But I've always been very drawn to the colors within our culture, right? And the symbolism within the clothing. And so I made a calaca of a woman with all the indigenous clothing of the of women. My grandparents are from specifically the tribe. They're Tarasco, and so there's that connection too of the purepeche and all that stuff and that ancestry and stuff. So I love to explore that and try to connect with that of like, I think growing up too, I unfortunately, I didn't grow up speaking Spanish. I was second generation. So for my sister and I, it was always this push of like, you go to school, get an education, you have these opportunities, right? I went to private school. So I come from a very privileged situation. But my parents didn't have that, and their parents were migrant workers, so they were that first generation they were the first to go to college, so for us, it was like, you have to go to college, you have these opportunities, so for me to connect to where they came from, it is very important because I want to be able to tell their story to my kids. And so eventually when all of this is over, I want to take them there and I want them to experience this world that we're so disconnected from and know that this is where your family's from. Like, we know where my grandparents came from, we know where their heritage is and their stories, and I don't ever want them to not have that connection. I think it's important for us as parents to, if we have knowledge of that, to be able to share that with them. Because that's how we care for each other. That's how we connect with that. And that's how we, I don't know. I just think it's super important.
I think I like the land. So I was recently, when all this went down, I was in Mexico City and I was visiting Teotihuacan with a group of really amazing, beautiful women. And we were engaging in ceremony there. But so when I was 18 was the first time that after high school, I have family in Mexico City, and I went by myself. So I didn't go with any family. I was staying with family, but I was, on a trip myself. And I remember feeling so connected to the land. And my compadre who's there, he reminded me, he was like, when you came, he said, you felt like this is where you belonged. And it was something that I had never, like, granted, I was only 18, but it also was something that I haven't felt since.
Yeah.
That, like, the call of the land, of the tierra, of the earth. Yeah. And so right after, I got pregnant when I was 19. So then I dedicated, my life and my time to getting my education and really raising my kids. And I had not, so my girls had gone to Mexico City because my family loves to travel. So they took my girls, but I was always working. And I hadn't been back until this past summer. And so how old? So I just turned 46. So I was 45, 18. How many years is that? It's a ton of years. I had not been back in decades. And again, this last trip, that connection is, and it's something that like you said, that I want my children to have. Yeah. But I know that it's something that I need to have because it's something that I think this is something that I've talked about. But being a mom for my adult life, I feel like I gave myself over to raising my kids. Part of like this time of my life now, my girls, my baby's 14, my older girls are 26 and 24. It's like I'm coming into like life in a different way. Yeah. And so I need to go for me. And I think it's really beautiful that you're planning, especially while the kids are young, and you guys are doing it together as a family.
Yeah. So, hopefully, I mean, it's going to happen. Like, I want it to happen. And I want to go there with my dad, because I know that he's been allowing me to go forever. And we had an opportunity a few years back, and then something came up and it had to get canceled. So again, it's that feeling of like, oh, this opportunity, and it's not going to happen. Not now, And so I almost feel though too that there's symbolism within that, right? Because for some reason, like I'm not going for some reason, and it'll make sense, and I'm really big about that, the symbolism of things, of why things happen, and checking in with myself of like, all right, this isn't happening for a reason, and I can't get overanalyze it. Like, I gotta let it happen the way it needs to happen. So yeah, but it'll happen.
At the pyramids, I met this man. He was kind of guiding us, but he took me aside and he told me, you need to come back as often as possible. Like, you have to come back. And I think part of that, like you're saying, it's about time.
Yeah.
And like me continuing to connect with the land of my ancestors, like the land of my grandparents, the land of, like, continuing to do that. It's something that this was meant for this time in my life. Yeah. It wasn't meant 5 years ago. It wasn't meant 20 years ago. It was meant for this time in my life. So I really appreciate that you also are like, you understand, like, like that understanding of that sense, like when it's gonna happen when it needs to happen, when it should happen.
Yeah.
And I think how beautiful to be able to go with your dad.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the goal, it has to happen. And I think it's just special, like, and it's my dad, I love him. And I just think that it's going to be beautiful when it happens. So.
And is your mom still living also?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And my mom, she is, I think, as for my stubbornness and being very like, you don't tell me I can't do something because I'm just going to prove you wrong. Like, that's all my mom. And I learned a lot of that from her, and so I give her a lot of credit of like really teaching my sister and I of being that way, right? Of like, don't ever let anybody tell you can't do something. You prove somebody wrong then, and you do it because you need to do it for yourself, and never depend on anybody, to take care of you. Like, you take care of yourself and everything that you love, and so she's pretty badass like that. So I love her.
Yeah. Yes, because that when you grow up with that sense, because my mom raised me the same way, when you grow up with that sense, like nobody can take from you because you're not depending on anybody.
Yeah. And
I think also that's the reason why I've been able to have the experience in my life that I've had, regardless of what my decisions were. But it was that sense of also like, oh, you think I can't? Or, oh, I'm gonna put like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's definitely like for myself, like that's really carried me within my work as an organizer of like, when you hit these walls of people trying to, tell you can't do something, or, like, why are you helping out these people that, what are you going to get out of it? It's like, no, like, I'm going to help them out because I need to do that. Like, that's for myself, for my soul. I need to do that, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to prove you wrong, and so for me, like, that's just, I don't know. I really, I mean, and also too, at the end of the day, when you do the work that you do, never do it with an expectation of what am I going to get out of this?
Right.
Like, that's the biggest, like, the thing I really hold dear. Like, you do it because you want to do it and you find happiness within that. Because the moment you start doing things and you have an expectation, you're going to be disappointed because you're not going to get what you wanted out of it because it's coming from it's not coming from a good place, And so for me, that's the thing, right? Like, in life, there's these highs and lows, and there's these things that happen in your life that can get you down and be like, oh, like, I don't feel appreciated sometimes, but then you're like, well, but then why did I do it? Like, I didn't do it for that. Like, I did it because I wanted to do it and I knew it's important. So it's okay, so.
I think I read somewhere that someone said, like, if you go into something with, like, if you go like to help somebody or you do something for somebody else, and then you have the expectation of something that comes back to you, then you didn't do it for them.
No.
And And that is something that I think for me is it's really important, at least to have the awareness
Yeah.
of what your motivation is to do things. Is it for
Mhm.
you? Is it for other people? Is it for you in this way? Like, I think
Mhm.
that's really important. And I, when I realized, so it really was with my relationship with my parents. When I released expectations of the way that I thought they should be,
Mhm.
that I wanted them to be, it really allowed us to then like it just allowed me to enjoy them as they are.
Mhm.
And it released them from like from my stuff,
Yeah.
and it really has allowed me to have really like really good relationships with them.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that. But it took a lot. It took
Yeah.
a lot to get there. And it was just and that I think also my recent journey has been transferring that to my children,
Mhm.
to not have expectations of who they are, why they are. I mean, there's kind of basic stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
there's basic things, but like in the big sense, when they start making their own decisions, when they start living their own lives, of just like releasing them to the world.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and
No, I was gonna say, like, I feel like it's interesting, right? Because like, for instance, with my son, he's a character, man. Like, he's so stubborn, he's a lot like me. Uh, and I remember he went through this phase when he was a kid, and I'm sure there are plenty of other parents that experience this, where I would pick him up from school, like, and we're talking about, he's only 11 right now, so he was like maybe like 8 or 9. Um, I'd be like, "How's your day going? Like, what happened?" Or like, I'll get a message from the teacher saying something happened, and I'm like, "Well, like." And trying to investigate, like, what happened at school today, and he was very little bit of information, like, oh, it was good, or whatever. And I would have these conversations, and like, well, I heard this from your teacher, and I'd get kind of upset with him and stuff like that. um and to try to make him realize, like, hey, you need to, when something's happening at school, like, you need to tell me, like, because I'm getting a teacher telling me that you did this, or like, and so my reaction at first was like, well, let me get mad at you, right? Because you did something wrong, and
Mhm,
you're in trouble now,
mhm,
so this is the consequences. And I found that it didn't work with him, because he's the type where he gets really stubborn, and all the more than like self-destruction of like being mad, and I'm not going to tell you anything because you're just going to get mad anyways, and so yeah, in realizing that it wasn't helping him. And here
mhm,
I am getting mad at him, and I'm not helping him, because now I'm creating
mhm.
this whole other snowball of emotions.
And how did that feel for you to be angry with your son?
Exactly, right? Because then you have that, there's guilt, there's more
Right.
anger, and there's all these emotions. And so I stopped at being angry, and I started saying, like, listen, if you get in trouble, one, you need to tell me, be honest. And I'm gonna be mad at you if you don't tell me what happened. If you tell me what happened, and yeah, you might get a little bit in trouble, but I will respect you more that you told me the truth, and let's have a conversation about this, right? And it changed our communication completely, because now it's like, if he were to get in trouble, and I would be like, well, how'd your day go? And he'd kind of, he'll look at me and kind of like, all right, what do you know? Um,
Mhm,
and he'll tell me, he's like, yeah, well, all right, let me just tell you, and he'll tell me, and he'll be like, are you mad? And I'm like, you know what? Thank you for being honest. Like, I
mhm,
appreciate that. And I'm very conscious of like the words that I'm using with him, of like, I appreciated the fact that you told me that.
mhm.
And I'm not happy that this happened, or whatever, the situation, but I appreciate the fact that you told me. So what do you think should be the consequence of that? Like, what do you think, or what do you think you should have done different? Or what do you think we should do now? Right? Because you got to go back to school tomorrow, and you got to fix it. Right. Um, and so it's been really cool to see how our relationship has evolved, and I think the most important thing of, like, I don't ever want my kids to feel fear, or feel like they can't come to me, because when they get older, they're going to get into some stuff, like, that's just, we've all been there.
Yep.
And I don't ever want them to be scared and not feel that they can't come to me. Like, that's like my biggest thing, you know, like I need them to feel safe. And if that means I might be disappointed in some of it, like it's okay. I just want them to always know that they can come to me. And we'll deal with it, whatever it is, you know, and get through it together. And, you know, like my daughter's like the complete opposite. Like she'll tell me everything, anything, and everything, you know, and she really feels things. So when she messes up, it's like, she'll just start crying and being like, I messed up. You know? And so with her, it's a different experience with her. Cause I gotta put her in that, like, you're okay. You know, you're being honest. Let's get through this. Like I kind of have to do a little bit more, not tough love, but be like, you know, what do you think we need to do? Like, let's fix this, you know? But I know with her, like she does process it, you know, a lot more. She feels it more. So when she knows when she messes up, it's just like, all right, well, so what are you going to do about it? And how are we going to fix it? We're good. And you're fine. You'll be fine, you know? And so kids are fun. I mean, they're, you know, this whole new experience too has been, it's been interesting and a lot of learning too with that. So.
I've always felt like my children have been my greatest teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very grateful to them for choosing me as their mom, but also for being my teachers.
Yeah.
So you're raising a 9 and 11-year-old. You have totally revitalized a community, a neighborhood. You're an artist. And I know that you talked about you're an essential worker, you work at Costco. Like, I know that you talked about your art, but what are the other ways that you take care of yourself? What are the other things that you do to take care of yourself, especially at this time?
Yeah. I
with your relationship with your husband, because we don't have a whole lot of time left, but give us a couple things.
Definitely every day I make it a point to get up. I take my shower in the morning. I get dressed. Like I don't like being in my pajamas all day. Like that to me is like that helps me be motivated for the day. So it's having a routine of like, I'm going to get up, I'm going to have my coffee, I'm going to make breakfast for everybody. Like keeping routine is what keeps me sane in many ways. And with my husband, right, it's the check-ins, right? Because even though, you know, we're home, everybody's in different rooms, you know, schoolwork, everybody's got their own space. You know, my husband, he's the dean of students now. So he's got a whole different, his whole work changed, right? And what he has to do and what his responsibilities are. So he has his space. And so it's kind of having our day to day and then checking in, right? Of like, how'd your day go? Right? We've been in the same room, but how's your day go? You know, like how you feeling, you know? And having those moments to sit down and have coffee or have a glass of wine and just being like, let's keep that routine of checking in and really appreciating that we can be home and be together right now, right? Because some of us can't, you know, and so being thankful for being able to be here and have that with them. So yeah, it's just reminding ourselves that, right? And again, checking in with family and friends and, you know, like, how can I help you? I'm going to go to the store. Do you need anything? I can get it for you. Don't worry about it. You know, that's one less trip for you, you know, and just being mindful of that. Like, that's how I can help, right? You know, again, going from organizing and doing events and stuff to not being able to do that. But that's the biggest part is what can I control around me? Because I can be really stressed out and being real anxious of thinking about all the stuff that's going on in this world. But what can I control within my home, within my community, with family and friends that might be struggling? How can I help you? You know, like that for me is where I can find ways to be active and helping those who I know need it. And being okay with that. You know, I don't have to get big and do all this organizing. It's okay to be home and be in this moment and do what I can for my family and for everybody that I love. You know, I go shopping for my in-laws all the time and a really good friend, because I'm like, you know, you don't have to leave this house. Like I will take care of you with that. You know, like I love you too much to ever put you in that position. So
I'm so grateful for you. You know, this morning I wasn't doing too well this morning. And one of the things that I talked about earlier was like being grateful for community and everything that you talked about and the reinforcement of the message around community and taking care. Like, thank you for coming on and talking to me.
Yeah.
I already had a lot of love for you, but I just so much more at a deeper level. Just thank you. And anything that you need, aquí estoy. I'm right here for you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. And we're going to have Enrique on the Spanish show on Friday.
Hi. He's excited.
Well, and I'll see if he wants to come on the English show. Also, so to give people an opportunity to hear from him and learn from him. So thank you again for being with us. I'm just going to sign off from here because we're a minute past our time. Good night. Thank you very much. Have a great night. And thank you for being on our 100th episode, Selina.
Thank you.
Yes, bye-bye. Thank you.